Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the midweek edition of Viewpoint on TBS television, 6:30 p.m. We are always there, given that you are there to have about 30 minutes of debate talks among our guests, in which we have in the studio. And in today's edition, we'll be talking about the recent event that happened in the southwest region of Cameroon, precisely in Buea, where some ex-Amba fighters rioted in the DDR center, rioted against poor living conditions there. And in tonight's edition, we will be trying to find out what impact it could have as far as the crisis is concerned, or as far as government handling of the crisis is concerned. To discuss about this, we are having a senior journalist with us in the studio, Augustine Wendong. Very often you will meet him in different platforms, and today he will be accompanying us alongside Mange Fenashus. Augustine Wendong, good evening and thank you very much for coming.
Good evening, Vanessa, Madam Shuyo. Good evening. It's a pleasure being here once again. I'm sure that should be my first outing to DBS television in 2021.
Exactly.
Though we are in the second month, I still reserve the prerogative because it's my first outing and my first meeting with you as journalists. This very beautiful, TV channel. To say Happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
To you, your best half.
Thank you very much.
And that 2021 should be fruitful to your family.
All right, I receive. Thank you very much.
I'm equally very, very delighted to meet my brother over there and to say Happy New Year, bros. Thank you.
Mange Fenashus, directly.
Thank you so much, my brother. It's a privilege having you, because when you come, you give us that push that we need to go ahead. Happy New Year, same to you, and to our viewers who are watching us, good evening. And it's another opportunity for us to commune, sharing ideas. Like Vanessa always say, we are live on Facebook.
We are live on Facebook, yes. And if they are not, if they don't have us on satellite, they should just tune in on Facebook, yes. DBS TV official,
and comment as well, because our technicians would be there to answer us.
Probably. Let us have the first part of the show. Rioting of ex-Amba boys in the DDR center in Buea, a potential danger to the government. That's a question. Augustine, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Mange Fenashus, do you think so?
Yes, I share the same opinion.
Yes. And is the idea of the DDR centers a solution to the crisis? Mange Fenashus?
Not at all, Vanessa.
No. Augustine?
It would have been a solution if a ceasefire is declared,
right,
because people living in the bushes and had been living a different type of life, if they have to come back to be reintegrated into normal life, they need to go through a particular and special procedure. But in as much as fighting is still ongoing, the place of the DDR is not important.
It's not important. So I think you're standing within the fence.
Yes.
All right. Let us have the debate. Stay tuned. Once more, you are all welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Viewpoint. In the first question, rioting of ex-Amba boys in the disarmament, demobilization and reintegration center in Buea, a potential danger to the government. That is what we are trying to find out. Augustine, in your point of view, you think that they stand as a threat, this rioting, to the government?
Not only to the government, they stand as a threat. Not only to the government, even to the Anglophones, to the nation as a whole, they stand as a threat. These are our brothers and sisters that were pushed by situations to go to the bushes, to take up arms. And it's not 2 months they have been in the bush. It's not 3 months. They have been in that life for close to 3 years down the road. They were no longer living normal lives. You know, drug consumption has been part of them. You know, extremism had been part of them. You know, other very dangerous vices had been inculcated into them. Foreign way of life, away from the normal way of life. Therefore, if they had decided to don their arms and government established a center for disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, the government would have done that only after the ceasefire. They now stand a threat in the sense that if they are rioting from the DDR center, it shows that they are more dangerous even than those who are still in the bushes.
Really?
Yes, because at this juncture, those in the bushes, they might still be looked upon to surrender. But these are Cameroonians who have surrendered. They have not been catered for. If they are rioting or even running away from the center again, they become a potential threat in the sense that government cannot just arrest them again as if they were Amba fighters. Government are arresting them now as people who are revolting. And when you are revolting against the regime, it means that if you meet any stumbling block, you are ready to do your worst. Okay? And this danger can be to every normal Cameroonian. Because if it's your brother or your sister, if they run away and they come back to you, they no longer consider you a brother or a sister. They no longer see life. They no longer valorize life. Because they know that they themselves are nothing. They can be crushed. They can be killed. And once such ideas is deep-rooted in somebody, the person become more of an animal than a human person.
All right.
So they become a potential danger that government cannot even contain any longer. Potential danger in the sense that these are people government would have used, you know, to set example for those who are still in the bushes. So you see, they have come to normal life. They have been reintegrated. They are now normal Cameroonians going about their life freely. Nobody has harassed them. Nobody has killed them, because from the start, those our brothers and sisters in the bushes said, no, we cannot come, because this should be this is a guillotine that they are setting up. It's a guillotine. But when they come and those who are living there prove the contrary, that it's not a guillotine, is instead a rehabilitation center, it's instead a land of milk and honey, it's instead a land of promise, every other person who is still scared will come on board. And that will be a simple way of transforming and changing these Cameroonians.
Augustine, report says they are complaining of maltreatment, starvation, overall poor living conditions. So what must have gone wrong, given that the head of the DDR center was, when he was being installed, he was tasked with actually reintegrating the people, getting them through some vocational training, where from there they'll be able to make a living and actually leave the idea, leave the notion of rebellion. So what must have gone wrong? Is it that there is a lack of sufficient funds to cater for these ex-Amba fighters in these centers?
Madam Vanessa Shuyong, I want to tell you, I stand corrected by anybody, that what shocked me and amazes me in Cameroon is the extent at which Cameroonians who have been given posts of responsibility have been bedeviled with mismanagement. Because you cannot tell me the lack of funds. No, lack of which funds? Government cannot go ahead creating a center of this nature. Do you know how much the Anglophone or the Anglophone armed conflict is costing the Cameroonian government? What funds to cater for how many? How many persons? How many people? How many are they that they will talk about lack of funds? I'm talking here about mismanagement. And secondly, Cameroonians who are in places of authority that do not love this country. Because it will not be again saying that in as much, no matter how much a Cameroonian amassed, once he or she have the opportunity to manage a budget, they go ahead and pick even the crumbs from the ground. That is where I see how lack of patriotism and love for this country from those who are given post of responsibility. I am not talking about the president of the republic, because he created the center. And he cannot create the center without giving the center what it takes. Remember that Cameroonians, when the Boko Haram insurgency emerged in the far north, the head of state called for national solidarity. I, as a journalist, let me tell you, I attest to you how Cameroonians contributed billions into that fund. I, journalist Augustine Wendundoye, I did at the banquet hall of the governor's office. I did my own quarter that the Boko Haram insurgency should be crushed, but I cannot contribute that Amba fighters or the separatist fighters be crushed, because these are Cameroonians. They don't need to be crushed. They don't need to be crushed. They need to be transformed.
Thank you very much.
They need to be rehabilitated.
Thank you very much, Augustine. You stay with us while we get the point of view of Mange Venashus, who equally thinks that these ex-Amba fighters, their rioting in this DDR center is a threat to the government.
Yes, Vanessa, it is a potential danger actually, because the center, if it was supposed to be a center for re-education, I like what Mr. Augustine said, re-education, because they were people who were already living lives that were just closer to animals than to human beings. So we needed to bring them back into the human fold. We needed to bring them back to think like human beings, to behave like human beings. But I'm of the opinion that school, that process of re-educating them has not gone through. Because if it did, they would not have gone out into the road. They would not have rioted as they did. If they, for now, if they still have that mentality of blocking circulation, and according to information that we read from the papers, when the director of the center in Buea, when he came down, they locked him in his office, deflated all his tires, even in the presence of military men, which means that animalistic aspect of them still came back, which means the state has not succeeded in re-educating them, reorientating them to have that spirit of a citizen. And from where they are, anything can happen. They are in a camp, and being in a camp, they can still foment their ideas, and if you are not careful, they may take arms again against the government, because they are coming to the conclusion. Vanessa, I read something yesterday about the issue of one general too, who left the bush. They are talking of General Nambere. He is complaining that he is regretting disarming because of what he is going through. The question I was asking was, if General Nambere, if he dropped his arms, why is he out in circulation in society? He should have gone to the DDR center to be re-educated. Now they've allowed him out, and if somebody starts expressing, because he explains it in a local television here in Douala, clearly that he regrets coming out of the bush and that he may still go back to the bush, which means all what transpired was for nothing. When we have people of that magnitude, it is a threat to the government, it is a threat to the population. Because if they go back to the bush, they have lived, they were out of the bush, they know who is what and where. They can come back to attack.
attack.
Yes. So I rather think that, like
like Augustine is saying, the government cannot create a center like that, and we complain that they lacked funds because their main concern was their feeding condition, their
living condition,
and the fulfillment, the promises that government made to them.
Reintegration.
Correct, had not succeeded.
Going through some training.
Vanessa, these are not children. These are not children. Some of them already were married with their wives and children.
Yeah.
You cannot constrain them to go back and live in a center without a program. They did not have any program. As for how long are they supposed to live in the centers? When are they expected to go back to normal life? The normal life that they were not foreseeing. That is why to them, you bring somebody of a certain age and you ask the person to learn tailoring. That is wrong. You bring somebody, ask the person to learn mechanics. Because when you have to give a profession to somebody, it comes from within. The person must, because if you don't have any passion for anything, no matter the training, you cannot go through. And it was like they were giving them what they did not want. That is why they are seeing their time in the center as a wastage. And that's why they were calling that they want to go back to normal lives. They are already in between normal life and going back to the bushes. And from what is happening, they are like being, they could easily be drifted back, yes, to the bushes than coming back to normal life. So if you look at them, when you have images from those inmates in those DDR centers, they are always dressed in the green, red, yellow. To give them that patriotic spirit that they had lost. But I'm afraid if they can still come out and block traffic, block circulation, that love of the country is not yet there. And for the state at which they are, the state, the government needs to be extra, vigilant. Because the fact that they assemble together, they can foment, they can build up their ideas, and those who are in charge of them in those centers may not be able to control them. Because if they come to the point of leaving the center, blocking circulation, blocking their director, deflating his tires, any other thing can happen. Any other thing can happen. So I think that this is high time that the state needs to take extra care about these people who are in the center. Augustine said it, they were supposed to be examples to encourage those who are out in the bushes. Because those who are out in the bushes now, seeing them in that state,
they don't have food to eat.
They will mock at them. Yes, they will mock at them. And that is why when you read some papers, for example, La Voix du Centre yesterday was telling us something, or the day before yesterday, I think Monday, was telling us something like one ex-Amba boy considers himself that he was duped by the government. When you start getting this type of sentiment, it means it is a problem. So I think that the government needs to be extra care with these people. If not, we are building a time bomb that would explode, and the boomerang, and will be too much.
And it will be too much for Cameroon to contain. Thank you very much, Yukoli Mangavenashus. In the second question is the idea of the DDR centers a solution to the crisis. Augustine, in the first part, you said yes and no. But yes, within the context that if a ceasefire was called upon, then the DDR center would have been the best idea to reintegrate, to re-educate these ex-Amba fighters and bring them back into the society. But then that is not the case.
That is not the case. Absolutely, because you don't reconstruct when war is still ongoing. Because this is human reconstruction. This is human rehabilitation. How many are still in the bushes? The first thing I think for conflict resolutions in the world is that a ceasefire be declared. The belligerent settled for talking. Now they can set a center to reintegrate or to rehabilitate those who had fallen prey to such a temptation in order to reinsert into society. But I was taken aback that the DDR was created when the armed conflict is still very fierce. And it's not different today.
That was in 2018.
Yes, it's not different today. If urban cities are relatively calm, there are still areas in the northwest and the southwest region that are still no-go area.
Of course.
So how can we be talking about the DDR? What I am at a loss is, I don't know why the two sides have to be on take extreme position that, okay, the monopoly of power and violence belong to government. But I think that the monopoly of violence and, power worked perfectly for the Boko Haram insurgency. Because these are foreign aggressors. Mm-hmm. But how can you tell me it's true? Taking arms against the state is wrong.
Of course.
It's wrong. I say it to the face of anybody because he had never helped any community and would not help us. But the state as well thinking that the solution is only military. I say it's a wrong option. It's a wrong option because the state is already counting close to 3,000 plus as citizens killed on a senseless front, in a senseless war. Okay? Being it the military, being it Amba fighters, being it innocent civilians. Of course, you accept with me that the head of state is sending an emissary with 80 million francs CFA to go comfort families of bereaved families of the Garbo massacre. Oh, come on. Do you know that in the 80s, Cameroon was considered as a country of men and women of integrity? Where has it suddenly gone to? That today is arrogance, today is manslaughter. It is so fast a Cameroonian gets out of bed in the morning and they start counting that they have killed 15 soldiers. And you see people jubilating. I say no. You will see awful images projected of our own brothers and sisters who are separatist fighters projected and people will be jubilating. Hey, I said, God forbid bad thing. This is anarchy and is chaotic. I don't think that is what the President of the Republic took oath of office for. He preached a doctrine of rigor and moralization and national integration. And I believe that if this doctrine had been propagated and assimilated by Cameroonians, will be called land of angels. But today, because of the quest for power and wealth, because I anchored a roundtable political debate at my media, and I will hear, one out of the Cameroonian intelligentsia telling me, it's difficult for this war to cease because there's economic war. There are people in high places already reaping.
Some of them are fitting fat
out of it. The blood of your own brothers and sisters or your sons and daughters. Have they become cannibals? What do they lack? No. I said no. It is not done. And I'm saying it and I'm repeating that you anchored this program today. You asked me the question whether the DDR could be a solution. I say no. That is why the Universal Church, the Catholic Church in the world, found that Cameroonians were killing Cameroonians because the church stands on the side of the poor. The church is a moral institution that valorizes the dignity of the human person. That is why His Holiness Pope Francis, for the very first time, has to dispatch his Secretary of State. That is number 2. The Holy See. His eminent Cardinal, Prito Pauline, with 2 principal messages: peace and reconciliation.
Peace and reconciliation.
And peace and reconciliation cannot come at the barrel of the gun. It has never worked. It did not work in the Rwanda genocide.
All right, Augustine, we'll come back to you. Mange Venashe, you think that this DDR center is not actually the solution to the crisis. So what then could be the solution?
No, Vanessa, the solution to this crisis is nothing short of negotiation, inclusive dialogue. Dialoguing. Augustine said it, these are not foreigners, they are Cameroonians. No matter what your child does, he would never cease being your child. The fact that your child, that I grew and I become independent of my father, does not make me separate from my father. I remain his child. The fact that the child grew up and became wayward does not take away the fact that he remains your child. These are Cameroonians, and like they always say, the state has a moral duty of reorienting wayward Cameroonians, re-educating them. They derailed from the right path, thinking that the right path could be separation. But the state has a duty to reorient them, bring them back to the fold.
But
they are Cameroonians.
There have been calls and petitions calling on these Amba fighters to drop arms and reintegrating the society through these DDR centers.
Yes, Vanessa, dropping arms and coming out of the bushes, that has been the call that was made. But the call, the call needs to be followed by an action. If the head of state gets up today and said, this war has ended. The head of state has never said, this war has ended. The head of state has always said, drop your arms. And it is the head of state who said, now the state of Cameroon will not be blamed if they go into a war front with this separatist. Now he has the duty as the father of the nation to say, if he gets up and said, this war has ended, like the father of the nation, it will end. Vanessa, there has never been any military on the field when they were talking about peace. There are forces of law and order. The military is a defense force. We have the forces of law and order. That is the police force. And in the context of Cameroon, police and gendarmes. Now, keep the police force in the field. The army comes back to the barrack. And then we go into negotiation. In that way, everybody when we call the national dialogue in Cameroon here, why did those who are Cameroonians in the diaspora, why did they not come to Cameroon? Because of the conditions they tabled, and it did not work. That is why the whole world is talking of inclusive dialogue. You can never reconcile with somebody by force. You sit and talk. And you cannot talk with the barrel of a gun on somebody's head. Ethically speaking, that the person is not under any other, commitment or engagement that the person makes is against his will because of the barrel of the gun. Once people sit in an inclusive dialogue, it means we discuss what is our problem. You cannot talk of an inclusive dialogue when it comes to Boko Haram and Cameroon. You cannot. But then when it comes to Cameroon and the secessionist fighters, these are Cameroonian citizens, and that is why everybody is talking about who has ever voiced out that Cameroon should negotiate with Boko Haram? Who has ever voiced out that we should go into inclusive dialogue or even dialogue with Boko Haram? We cannot. But when it comes to the separatist fighters, we have to. That is the way out. DDR centers, when we, after negotiation, and we have settled our differences, then our brothers and sisters who went out of target, we can now bring them and then reorientate them, re-educate them now in the centers, and the centers now will have their place, Vanessa.
All right, Augustine, we are about to end today's edition of the show, but I would like to know, what could you tell the head of the DDR center, talking of Fayingo Francis, to better cater for these ex-fighters who have dropped arms and have decided to be normal citizens of Cameroon?
I want to, before I answer to that question, Madam Vanessa Shuyon, I want to emphasize that there had been a popular misconception that people are trying to propagate, thinking that Anglophones are Ambazonians. Anglophone does not mean Ambazonians, okay? But I want to tell you that there is an Anglophone problem that is being acknowledged by all Anglophones. Now, those who have taken up arms are separatist fighters, and like my brother actually put it, inclusive dialogue. I don't even see why it's been at the past that be scared, whether it's just, presidential or government authority and pride, I wouldn't know. Because when they say that there is a dialogue between Vanessa and Augustine, if Augustine had been extreme, in an extreme position during the dialogue table, Augustine will find himself minority.
All right, Augustine,
and that will be over.
Augustine, we're running out of time.
The director of the center should not permit that which happened in the southwest to happen
again,
and not to permit it. Let them give adequate care to these ex-fighters so that they can stand as a testimony
for those out there
in the bushes.
Thank you very much, Augustine Wendong, a senior journalist, and thank you very much, Mangavina. We've come to the end of today's edition. Do stay tuned to DBS television. We've exceeded time. Sorry for that inconveniences, but coming up next, you'll be having the primetime newscast in the English language. Goodbye.